Welcome to the D-Shift podcast, where we provide inspiration, motivation, and education to help you transition from the challenges of divorce to discover the freedom and ability to live life on your own terms. Are you ready? Let's get this shift started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the D-Shift podcast. And I am so happy to have my guest today. Erik Feig is a person who is so passionate about what he does. And just in our conversation, you're going to hear this come through. Erik is a dedicated family mediator with expertise, passion, and heart in helping families with neurodiverse children, managing to navigate the mediation process, get better support for their kids, and also become more effective co-parents, understanding the special needs that this group of children may have throughout the process. Erik also helps families who are dealing with caregiver issues, adults who are requiring additional support, and elder care mediation, which I have done. And that is some of the most challenging types of mediation to do because it's so emotional. Anything that's dealing with kids or our parents and loved ones is going to be really challenging. So Erik, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. So glad to be here.
Well, you are welcome. And we have talked many times, and I know this is really your heart and your area of specialization. And it is important when you're dealing with children with neurodiverse issues, which is what we're going to focus on a little bit today. I think it's really important to have somebody who is an expert in this field to guide the family, or to at least be able to provide options for the family to consider. So, Erik, how did you get into this very specialized area of mediation?
Well, I think the best way to describe it is it's autobiographical. I have 3 kids of my own, a small, medium, and large. I call them. My oldest is 20. My youngest is 14. Each one of them is differently wired. Each one of them is neurodiverse, and they're differently wired from each other. So their strengths, their challenges, what they need in terms of supports, they're all different. Each one is unique. And so we've been doing this as a family for a very long time. And what that led me to is the realization of how much work as parents we do, not just for them, but to stay aligned with each other. And we have so many wonderful supports now. We're fortunate that over the years, even compared to 10 years ago, we have so many more supports available for them. We have a lot of supports available for us as the parent to help them. We don't have nearly as much to help us as parents to stay on track with each other for them.
Yeah.
So all of those times when a decision needs to be made, or an issue comes up where we're not on the same page, where we disagree, sometimes we need help for us to align with each other, to get them what they need. And that's really what led me to this, was to help be the support for that piece.
Yeah. And thank you for saying that. And I think you brought up another really good point here, Erik, is that mediation doesn't just have to be for couples who are divorcing. It could be for families who are planning on staying together, but who are experiencing a particular challenge and just need somebody who's a neutral third party who understands what you're going through to help you have those sometimes really challenging conversations and come to an agreement that's going to work for mom, dad, and the children, or the parents and the children, whether you're staying together or divorcing.
Look, I take a kids first approach, putting them front and center in these discussions. And I think the and is very important, and making sure to the extent we can build those bridges from where we are to something that we all can say yes to, that we all can get behind. And I think your point is so well taken, because I'm very passionate about that. I work with families at all stages. I work with parents who are together that sometimes they just get stuck and they need that help to get unstuck. I work with parents when they're separating, divorcing, through the whole process. And what comes after, we're still parents after divorce. And those decisions are still going to come up when co-parenting, for instance. And the decisions you're making now in a parenting plan, if you think about it, you're making decisions now for the future you see, needs are going to change.
Yeah.
That's just, it's inevitable. So looking 2 years, 3 years, 5 years out, being able to create that foundation where you're cooperating with each other, no matter how you feel about each other as parents or as co-parents, but being able to function for them and having a resource that helps you function when you need to, when those hard decisions come up, or even the day-to-day decisions, I think can be invaluable. It could change the whole trajectory of how
It,
things go.
it absolutely is. And I want to talk to you a little bit about parenting plans because I know a lot of people go into mediation. I work with many couples trying to hammer out those co-parenting plans. And when you're dealing with any child, whether they have special needs or they're neurodiverse or they have a physical issue or they have none of those challenges in life, no matter how good you do your co-parenting plan, stuff is going to happen that there is no way that you were able to anticipate as parents. So can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the elements that you see in a co-parenting plan that need to be absolutely in there, but maybe some others that parents should just be prepared to think about or have a lot of flexibility around?
Look, I think you're making a great point. And pick any part of the parenting plan and we can come up with issues like that. I think what's important is in a parenting plan, you're setting up a structure and you're setting up a way that hopefully leads to cooperation. So you'll have plans for what you know and what you both agree about now. Also, and this is how I try to approach it with the families I work with, is to build in the flexibility to say, okay, what haven't we thought of? What what aren't we able to think of? What do we do then?
Right.
And so have a process where you're not going to necessarily have an agreement, but be able to say, if something comes up, here are some of the steps we can take. And mediation can be a very powerful way to practice cooperating with each other instead of battling things out. Look, it's
Yeah.
easy to dig in, right? I have my ideas about how things might be. You'll have your ideas. And what do? We try to convince each other first that our way is the one that's more right. And we have that tug of war, right? Am I going to win more or are you going to win more? In mediation, having someone who isn't, say in my family, someone who isn't us, helping to facilitate, helping to look at what's possible, we might come up with ideas iteratively that we wouldn't think of if we were just defending what we came in with. Maybe it's
Mhm.
off that straight line. Maybe it's something entirely different that we would never have thought of, but for being able to have a conversation with each other. So I
Yeah.
think all of that within the parenting plan, it's the combination, but being able to set the stage for that process, for the flexibility, for working cooperatively instead of fighting. I think that's what makes the difference.
Yes. Oh, and you know what? That just made me so happy when you said that. That was just like everything that I think is so important because and I love the fact that you said somebody that's not us to have that conversation. That's a really powerful uh image of what this mediation can be. And I always tell people if you're dealing with each other with a problem, it's kind of like buying a car at the dealership, right? There, one person wants this price, one person wants that price, and somewhere you're going to settle between those two prices. But if you go to mediation, it's like all of a sudden you get a pie. Instead of a straight line, you've got a pie with a whole bunch of different pieces, and you can take parts from this, parts from that, and create that completely unique arrangement that's going to work for your child and for you as parents. And that's not possible if you go to court, if you work with attorneys. It's just not possible because the legal system is not set up to do that creative stuff.
It's not, that's not the job of the legal system. It's not built from that. I say this as a recovering attorney. I was an attorney for a very long time. I don't practice anymore. Mediation is all I do. I do this professionally. This is my day in and day out. But it's not, those systems are set up to be, they're based on competition.
Right.
It's an adversarial system. There's winners, there's losers. Who wins more, who loses more, and who do you convince? The judge
Right.
of who is more right or whose answer should be the one that you go with. In mediation, it's not about that competition. It's about saying, what do we need? When we're talking about our kids, what do our kids need?
Yeah.
And how do we meet those needs? What's possible? What are our options? And instead of saying, we talk about positions as in negotiation. A position is a thing that you're going to put out as maybe an offer or you're going to defend as something that you want to achieve. We move from positions, which is where people can often get stuck because we're defending something, to saying, what do we need? How do we get there? I think that how question is fundamental to the work in mediation. It's how also means that there's more than one way to get there.
Yeah.
And we could choose among them. We're assembling solutions. And I think that that can be really powerful when we're able to look at a problem and say, okay, what are the ways we can get there?
Right.
And then make a decision.
Right. Yes, because and I know that we're not here to say litigation is bad, mediation is possible for everybody. Some cases are just not going to be able to be mediated because of because of one of the parties, perhaps mental health challenges, or they're just simply unwilling to come to the table. There are those difficult people. We don't need to diagnose them or call them by any particular names, but there's a small number, about 15%, I think, of family cases actually end up going all the way through to litigation. But the mediation, and I wanted to say one thing, in every family court that I've ever sat in on, and I've never been an attorney, but I have sat in on a lot of cases, the judge always says, I'm here in the best interests of the children. But the judge doesn't know your children. The judge just knows what the law says is the best, or what precedent says is the way that these cases are going to be handled. So if you are a parent who really wants to be child-centered during this, working with a specialized mediator who has experience in handling these kind of cases is such a valuable tool for you moving forward. And I think it does resolve a lot of the conflict, or at least gives people, like you said, a structure for how to handle conflict in the future.
It sets up the opportunity to hear each other, to be heard by each other, and hopefully to understand. And I think that's so important, each of those. And it also, as a mediator, my job is to listen and to ask questions. You're the experts. If you're the family that I'm working with, you're the experts in your situation, in your children, in what everybody needs. I'm not the expert. So when you put ideas out, I can be curious. I ask questions that may be hard for you to ask each other as parents, because when it comes out between the two of you, it might come out with a little bit of intensity, or it might come out loaded. It might come out as hearing it as one of you might hear it for whatever reason as an attack, when all that's intended is to get information. I can ask questions without all of that history, without all of that baggage coming along with it, so that you can hear each other, have the conversations you need to have, and then, like I said, be able to look at it. And like you said, looking at litigation and other paths, there's room for all of them.
Right.
And from where I sit, it's about choosing the right tool and the right path to get you to where you need to go. There are times when litigation is absolutely the right way to go. There's times where another process will be the right one. I view mediation as kind of a multi-tool. Within the toolbox, there's a lot of flexibility. And yes, it does work when there's high conflict.
Sure.
It works with lower conflict. I have people will come to me, sometimes they're in a state where if it were raining outside, they wouldn't agree that the water is wet.
Yeah.
But we can get there.
Right. Right.
It is possible. And I think what mediation does very often, it takes folks who will come in and they feel kind of hopeless.
Right.
About the idea that they would ever be able to work through anything, but they know they need to.
Right.
And we can build from that, as long as they're both willing to make a real try.
Mm-hmm.
Very often, I can't promise results, but very often we're able to build, even if it's building slowly, areas where they can both say yes.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that's really important, and I'm just going to throw this out there. This is the difference between speaking with a professional mediator who does this with the understanding of what families who have neurodiverse children or children with special needs or elderly family members or whatever. This is the difference between working with somebody who does this professionally or somebody who just kind of does it on the side. I think that's a really big designation, because a lot of people go to I hear this all the time. Oh, I went to mediation, and then they tell me what the process was. I'm like, I don't know what you were doing, but that was not mediation. So I'm just thinking, Erik, and I know I didn't talk to you about this at all, but could you maybe explain to people who are sitting there listening and going, well, I don't even really understand what mediation is. Can you tell people a little bit about what they could experience if they were to work with you as a mediator?
Sure. Look, we can think of it like we said before, and like we've been talking about. It's a dialogue with support. It has structure. It is oriented towards finding solutions that everyone can say yes to. There's many different styles of mediators, and I say to anybody that approaches me or considers working with me, let's make sure that I'm the right fit for you, and you're the right fit for people that I can help as well. I work with lots of families, lots of different situations. But the process, the way I do it, we do it all online on Zoom. So just like we're having a conversation right now, we're all on screen together. We work directly with the parents. So it might be both parents and myself. We're all on screen. The work is mostly together. And in a structured way, let's take a divorce situation, for instance. In my process, we start with working on a parenting plan. So we put the kids first, like I said, without putting them in the middle of what's going on between the parents. And we talk through all of those important issues and decisions, everything from how the parents will communicate about their kids, how they will get to spend time with their kids, and how their kids will get to spend time with each of them. So those are those daily schedules, those weekly schedules, monthly, holidays, special days, vacation trips, how they make decisions. And that's not just the big decision. It's also day-to-day decisions. In my view, are very important because we can get just as stuck sometimes on the logistics of who's going to bring them where, when, and how, as we can on the big decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we dive in on all of that. And when we're talking, and there's a host of other issues, extracurriculars, we can go down the line. When we're talking about kids that are complicated, that have additional needs, we dive deeper.
Mm-hmm.
So we might talk about, what do supports look like? What does a schedule look like? How do you pick the supports that your kids need? Sometimes we might be talking about questions involving medication, right? You might have a parent that one says yes to medication and the other parent says absolutely not. And in mediation, we could explore what's behind the yes and what's behind the no. Sometimes the no, there's some very good reasons for that from that parent's perspective that would never come out if all we were doing was battling about yes and no.
Right. Yeah.
So very often I will find that having that discussion again can help us to look at options. What schools are the right fit? What schools should they go to? Is it private, public, specialty, some other arrangements? They need something after school.
Right.
What supports, therapies, therapeutics they might need. We'd go into all of that. And so these are all conversations. These are all discussions that are different for every family.
Yeah.
And every family, whether they have kids with additional needs or not, or additional strengths, is going to have different answers and a different, like you said before, it's how you assemble all of these levers and where you set them.
Right.
You might have 10, 20, however many levers you want to imagine that could be set differently for every child, every family. And it's then the question is, how do we make something that works for them?
Right.
After we talk about parenting, we tend to talk about what to do with the things, the assets, the debts, the liabilities. It's what we call division of property.
Right.
So we take an inventory and then we talk about, and the inventory is what is all of the marital property. And then we take that inventory and say, now let's make some decisions about what to do with it.
Right.
After we go through there, we talk about financial issues. And that's when we talk about what those future looking financial needs would be for the family, for the kids, how costs and expenses will be shared and allocated. And we talk about issues like support,
Right.
both at the adult level and the kids level. Mixed in with all of this are the unique issues that might come up for any family that's unique to them, that
Right.
might not apply to others, but the opportunity is there to bring that up. So high level, this is a guided process.
Yeah.
And when things get heated, some of these discussions can get heated. Emotions can run high. This is important stuff we're talking about. My role is to help keep it on track and keep you looking at what's in front of you instead of getting stuck on what's behind, what's in the rearview mirror.
Yeah. And I think this is the ultimate in mediation, because as you can tell from listening to Erik, he's not running the show. He's not telling people what to do. It's just helping people have conversations to make the most informed decisions in the best interest of the kids and themselves. And I really appreciate that you start working with the children first, because I think if you can, that makes understanding why financial decisions need to be made so much easier. And it also helps parents understand, especially, and I know very limited about this. I'm not a specialist in working with these families as you are, but I do know that sometimes, child support is not going to end at 18 for these children. There's going to be perhaps ongoing therapy, care, additional supervision for the child's safety even as they get to maybe into their adult years. So parents may have a child that's 4, 5, or 6, and they may have to be thinking about, in the event that we reach the age as two separate people living in two separate homes that can no longer support our adult child, how are we going to financially make sure that that child, adult at that time, has access to all the services they need? And this can seem really overwhelming, and having somebody like Erik that can guide you through those conversations. And I'm guessing there's not really a time limit, right? Like it's not like, well, we have to get this decided, in the next 25 minutes so we can go on to point B. You really take the time to allow the families to have this very comprehensive conversation.
I encourage parents, I encourage anybody that I work with to think in terms of what's the right pace. Going fast can, in the long run, be slow, because the things that you don't think about or talk about or deal with now, they will come up later.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Erik, we have covered a lot, and I honestly can never believe in these conversations how fast time goes. So, what do you want, or what would you like people to keep at the top of the mind about the conversation that we had here today?
I think it's important that people remember that there is a different option, that even when they're feeling like there's a lot of conflict, or they're feeling hopeless or overwhelmed, it is overwhelming. It can be overwhelming. There is a resource in mediation. It can be one of the tools that can help them to get through to the other side, even when things are hard, especially when things are hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to, that was beautifully said. I want to just remind people that because you do your mediation with Zoom, you can work with people all across the country. You're not limited to any geographic area, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Fantastic. So if people do want to reach out to you and find out more about what you do, or talk to you about booking a mediation session, what's the best way to do that, Erik?
I offer a free consultation. We talk about your questions, and we go through it all. And you can book that with me by phone, 301-485-9272, or go to my website at www.mediator, www.feigmediationgroup.com. It's Feig mediationgroup.com.
Thank you so much. I'm going to make sure all that information gets in the show notes so it's easy to find. Erik, thanks for sharing your expertise on this. This is such an important topic for parents to know.
Thank you again. I had a lot of fun being here.
And thank you all for listening into this episode of The D Shift. And don't forget to tune in again next week. Thanks for listening and supporting the D Shift podcast. If you would like to attend live trainings by our amazing guests and have a chance to ask questions and get answers from our experts, join the D Shift crew. For more details and to sign up, head on over to www.divorcecoachforwomen and click on the podcast page.